So yeah, Hayley Douglas, Head of Media and Communication at Cambridgeshire Fire and Rescue Service. I was asked to be our menopause ambassador in about 2018 by our then Equality and Inclusion advisor. I had a little sniggle to myself as to why me. I was in my early 40s, I think I was about 42 at the time, and thought, oh, just being asked because I'm approaching that age, etc. I didn't know much about menopause at all at that age and that point. I knew my mum had been through it and she had had hot flushes, got a bit irritable. I knew we had a menopause policy. I don't think I'd read it at that point, but that was about it. So I was like, I don't know what to do with this role, don't know anything about it, why me? So I wrote a blog post initially, just sort of saying to people, I think it was for World Menopause Day in 2018, I said, look, I know nothing about this, but come on the journey with me. The ambassador roles were for every protected characteristic in the service, we'd introduce them, and we wanted to have menopause as well. So just come on the journey with me. And so that's where it all started. And to be fair, it didn't really go much further than that for a while. I was really busy in the day job, and then COVID hit, and I was really busy in the day job. And it got to World Menopause Day in 2020 when I kind of thought, hang on, I need to do something about this additional role I've been given. So I bought a book by someone called Dr. Louise Newson, who's literally just left the room, which I'm quite relieved at, because to present in front of someone you've been socially media stalking for 2 years is quite unnerving. So I bought her book, and it was at that point, so bearing in mind I was then about 44, and I started reading the symptoms, and I suddenly became a lot more interested in the role of menopause champion, because I was going through the symptoms going, yep. And I think I ticked about 8 of them off, and I thought, well, hang on, I'm on this journey too. So what did I do? I put out an email asking individuals who'd been through the menopause if they could get in touch with me, because I wanted to find out what it was like for people working for our service who were going through the menopause. As a result of that, I spoke to a female firefighter who was about to retire. She'd just hit 50, and we had a really, really interesting conversation about how the perimenopause was affecting her, and she was actually grateful for the fact that she'd hit her retirement age because she didn't think that she'd be able to carry on for much longer with it. One of the things that she talked about for me was about having to take sickness nearly every month at the moment with really heavy periods. She said, I just could not come in and do my role as an operational firefighter with the bleeding I was having. And she was thinking how unfair that was. She had to book sick for it. And I was sat there thinking, you know, right, I think that's really unfair as well. And I walked away from that conversation thinking, right, I kind of understand what I can do now and what my influence as a senior manager in the organisation can have and what the difference we could potentially make. So the first thing I did was spoke to our people team at the time and asked if we could put menopause as a separate category on the sickness absence. That way, not only could we monitor the impact of menopause in the organisation, but we didn't have to. We could work out a way of not penalising people for needing to take sickness when they were having symptoms. By this time, I'd had a few people contact me, and we all met to discuss experiences. And it was clear at that point that colleagues in support roles felt they could manage their symptoms quite well. We were coming out of COVID, so working from home was a lot more acceptable. They could choose what they wore. They could have a desk fan if they wanted. And so, you know, they were fairly comfortable with being at work. Though the brain fog was one that was causing some anxiety for people. The fact they could be in a meeting and not remember someone's name, not remember a certain word for something, couldn't remember what they were doing in the meeting yesterday, and now they were being asked for actions, etc. The impact of the symptoms for me for operational was more challenging, and you know, the more I kind of thought about it, the more I thought, well, actually, some of these symptoms on an operational part, that's more a health and safety risk for me. So if somebody's not sleeping, they're suffering fatigue, and then they're expected to go and drive a big red truck on blue lights, there's got to be some risk factor there we've got to look at. You know, having hot flushes, wearing BA, all those considerations that were spoken about before lunch. A colleague volunteered to go and research what was out there in other fire and rescue services. I don't know how thorough his research was, but he came back to say that he couldn't find any other risk assessment approach to dealing with menopause symptoms in fire and rescue services. So we developed our own with our health and safety advisor, very similar to our maternity risk assessment. So we have a generic assessment that lists all the symptoms and the possible impact on the workplace, and then you use the individual risk assessment to kind of go through them, talk about the individual symptoms that you're having, how that might impact, and what reasonable adjustments can be put in place. We're also on about our third iteration of the menopause guidance. And you know what? It's literally ready to be published and replace the old version. And yet I've sat here today already thinking I need to make some changes in it and I need to add some stuff. And so who knows when it'll end up being published again. But interestingly, it's that cross-sectionality of the different protected characteristics for me is the bit that's missing in ours and we need to do a bit more of. So, you know, there's so much to learn with menopause, isn't there? And I think this is part of that champion role. So I spoke to the occupational health team and made sure they were all lined up because they were the ones that were getting the risk assessments sent to them. We introduced a menopause section on our wellbeing hub where, as well as all the corporate documents, we actually put a whole load of different external websites. We've got the Newson Clinic, the Balance app, everything like that that's included. The firefighters charity stuff is all included in there. We produced a video. We wanted to raise awareness in the service about menopause and thought there were a number of ways we could do this. And the sort of the quickest and easiest way was to produce a video to share. So this was coming out of COVID now in about 2021. But I wanted it to feature colleagues. The people who I've been talking to in our service that have been telling me their real stories, I wanted the video to feature them so that they could tell their real story. And you know what? It didn't actually take any bribery. They were all really happy to come and be part of this video. And we had male colleagues as well talking about their experiences with their partners or just generally how they feel that they needed to learn more about the menopause. And it went down really well. And we got some really good feedback from it. By this time, I still didn't have much evidence from operational women about how things were affecting them in the workplace. So we decided to run a survey. It was sent out to just to women so we could get a very targeted audience. But we also opened it up and it was also about periods because, you know, if I was to ask somebody the impact of menopause, they'd be, well, I'm not answering this survey because I'm not menopausal. So we wanted to ask questions about, well, how does having a period at work affect you? You know, does that impact your work on a daily basis? How much did they know about menopause at whatever age they were? You know, what was our journey? How much work did we have to do? So we sent separate ones to support staff, operational and to control, so we could then understand the different things that were coming out. As a result of that, there were 12 recommendations that were made and that I presented to our strategic management team, and all 12 got agreed. What came of it? One of the things that's been spoken about by operational colleagues was toilet facilities at the incident. So we have portable loos, but it either has to be a certain number of make-up pumps or it has to be 4 hours or something like that before the toilets are called, except the incident commander can call them, but they don't always think to do that. So actually we thought it's not so easy for women to go and pee behind a bush, but actually why should men have to do that as well? This is about, you know, sort of integrity for everybody, decency for everyone. So we introduced these pop-up tents and environmentally friendly popperloos, and we trialled them on two fire engines, and they're now on every fire engine, on call and hold time, across the whole service as of a couple of months ago. And they've been really well received. And there's a process in place for actually automatically putting them up with a certain number of pumps rather than needing a wee, and then you've got to try and put the tent up and everything first. Getting the tent down is a lot more challenging than putting the tent up, by the way. We also improved the provision of menstrual protection in all toilets across the service and fire engines. Our SHQ buildings still have one of the coin slot machines for tampons and towels. I never carry a pound around with me anymore. I don't know who carries change around with them. You can't Apple Pay one of them. And so we got rid of them, and in every cubicle of unisex and female toilets, we now have one of these hanging bags that's got a mix of towels and tampons in, and the gel acts as a moist toilet roll. You put a bit of gel on the loo roll, and it acts as a wet wipe. And in our headquarters building, we've got 2 black cardigans hanging up, so if anybody was to have a leak, and they were a bit embarrassed, they've just got something they can grab and tie around themselves until they can go and get changed. They've also gone the packs into every fire engine as well, but they're in a plastic tub on the fire engine. They're in the cab and they get checked regularly. One of the things that came out of the survey was that people had no idea what the symptoms of menopause were, very consistent with what we heard this morning. So we now have a poster as well in every toilet cubicle across the service. We've done the usual, holding menopause events and cafes, as I'm sure many of you in the room have. Two of us trained to be menopause champions. We went on an external course, and our plan is to train more people ourselves that we can then, so that there are more people for individuals to go and speak to if they need to. Sitting on, sort of one-to-ones with their manager if they needed a bit of support. We've started menopause awareness training for all colleagues. We've decided to run it in-house. So far, I've run 3 with 3 watches. It's been quite well received. I've got a whole load more I need to do. So the plan is to train some more people up so we can get them delivered over the next 12 months. And I guess finally, established a network of menopause champions from other fire and rescue services. So I wanted to speak to people that were doing the role I was doing in other fire and rescue services. 3 people came forward. I couldn't find anything, so I put a message on Workplace. 3 people came forward and we arranged a date. We would have a Teams call. We actually promoted that date just to see if we could get 1 or 2 more. The first meeting we had over 30 fire and rescue services represented with a menopause champion, and it was brilliant. And it's actually through that work that this conference has come about. We sat there going, you know, wouldn't it be, we're all doing this stuff in our own services, and we're right, sometimes regional collaboration, but wouldn't it be great if we could do something with all fire and rescue services? We're all talking about the same issues here. We thought about face-to-face conference and dismissed it straight away, thinking that'll never happen. We were just going to concentrate on a webinar. But look what's happened. So yeah, it's been brilliant. So really quickly, because I'm sure I've probably gone over my 10 minutes, I just wanted to leave. I've been in the situation where I was given the role of menopause champion and had no idea what to do and what to get started. So if you're sat there in that same position, not knowing what to do, just some top tips to finish on. Appoint a menopause champion who's passionate about the subject. I've done so much more when my passion has increased in this role. You've got to find the right person that's got the right influence and the right passion to do it. Ask colleagues who are going through the menopause in your organisation to help you. Ask them what they're going through. Ask them what their issues are. What would they want to change? Get senior officer buy-in. I'm really lucky. I've got a really supportive senior management team. And, you know, they've been really supportive in everything. And use data. Find out the number of women in your service that are over 40 or over 50. Work out how much it would be or how many days absence it would be if each one of those took just 2 days off sick a year. What would that equate to financially for the organisation? So try and get some data to go with it. And make it about periods too. A greater audience, and it's a related subject, and more information will come out that way as well. And talk about menopause at any opportunity. I'm finding that actually that's the most important thing. The feedback is people just feel they can talk about it. It's not a taboo word anymore. And I think that that's where we can encourage that openness. People will start talking about it more, and we will be able to increase that support. And finally, just keep chipping away. You, as a menopause champion, and I know there are a few in the room today, you know, you don't think, all you can see is you've got this big thing with all this list of stuff you want to do, but keep chipping away at it, because little steps can make a really big difference. I've had somebody tell me that because of a menopause cafe, they felt able to go and speak to their line manager, and they'd never felt able to do that before. They had a really positive conversation with him. It was a male, and they were a bit scared about having that conversation. 2 men have been in contact in the last 3 months, wanting some support because their partners are going through the menopause. For them to know who to come to or where to find information, that would never have happened 2 years ago. So the more we can talk about it, just keep chipping away. Little things make a big difference. That's it. Thank you.